I found my daughter-in-law eating chicken feed behind my own farmhouse while my son stood outside the coop and told her she had to earn every bite. My name is Evelyn Whitaker. I was 60 years old the day I came back to Whitaker Farm after 8 years away. I had one carry-on suitcase, a folder of old property papers, and a framed photo of my son, Daniel, when he was 5 years old, sitting on his father's shoulders with summer cornfields behind him. I had Gannett, Oregon after my husband died because grief had made that house unbearable. Every room had Henry in it. His muddy boots by the back door. His coffee mug with the cracked handle. His handwriting on seed receipts. I told myself Daniel was grown, married, capable, and ready. I told myself leaving him to manage the farm was trust. That was the lie I used to sleep at night. The drive from the airport to rural Missouri took almost 3 hours. I expected weeds. I expected peeling paint. I expected the ache that comes from seeing a place that used to be alive grow tired without you. I did not expect cruelty. The white farmhouse looked smaller than I remembered. The porch sagged at one corner. The rose bushes my mother planted had gone wild and thorny. The barn doors were streaked with rust, and the old wind chime by the kitchen window hung silent, tangled with dead leaves. I knocked twice. No answer. Then I heard Amon shouting behind the house. At first, I did not recognize the voice. It was too cold, too sharp, too ugly. Then I heard it again, and Mistamok turned. Daniel. I followed the sound past the tool shed, dragging my suitcase over gravel. Behind the barn, near the old chicken coop, my son stood in expensive boots and a pressed denim shirt, holding a phone in one hand like he was too important to bet here. Clean it before dark, he snapped. And don't come crying to me if you're still hungry. A woman's voice came from inside the coop. Yes, Daniel. I'm trying. Her voice was thin. Not quiet by nature. Quiet because someone had trained it to be. Daniel laughed. You've been trying for 9 years, Claire. Trying is all you ever do. I stopped walking. Daniel. He spun around like he had seen a ghost. For 1 second, I saw fear on my son's face. Then he smiled, too fast and too wide. Mom, he said. What are you doing here? Why didn't you call? I did not hug him. Who is in there? His jaw tightened. Nobody. Claire's just cleaning. Your wife is cleaning inside a chicken coop? She wanted to help. The woman inside made a small sound. Not a word. A warning. I looked at Daniel, then at the latch on the coop door. Open it. Mom, don't start. Open it. He stepped in front of me. You've been gone 8 years. You don't know how things work around here. No, I said. But I know what a locked door looks like. I pushed past him and lifted the latch myself. The smell hit me first. Rotting feed, damp straw. Chicken droppings. Sour, trapped air. Then I saw her. Claire was sitting on the floor in the corner, surrounded by feathers and broken eggshells. Her hair was matted against her neck. Her blouse was torn at the shoulder. Mud streaked her skirt and legs. Her hands shook as she held a handful of dry corn in pellets. She had been eating them. For a moment, my mind refused to accept what my eyes saw. This was the woman who used to send me Christmas cards written in neat blue ink. The woman who had once called me Mom Evelyn in a shy voice after their wedding. The woman Daniel said was anxious, difficult, private, always tired, not well. She looked up at me, and her eyes filled with terror. Mrs. Whitaker, she whispered. I didn't know you were coming. I knelt in front of her. What did he do to you? She shook her head quickly. Nothing. Il was just cleaning. Behind me, Daniel groaned like I was embarrassing him at a restaurant. See? This is what she does. She performs. She wants pity. I turned and saw him rolling his eyes. She's dramatic, Mom. Ever since she couldn't give me kids, she's been useless around here. The words landed like a slap. I looked back at Claire. Now I saw everything I had not let myself see. Yellowing bruises on her arms. A fading mark near her throat. Cracked lips. Hollow cheeks, the way she flinched when Daniel moved. I stood slowly. For 60 years I had known many kinds of anger. The anger of unpaid bills. The anger of betrayal. The anger of grief. This was different. This was the kind of anger that made the world go silent. We're leaving, I said. Claire's eyes widened. No. I can't. You can. Daniel stepped forward. She's my wife. And you are my son, I said. But right now, that is the only reason I am still speaking instead of screaming. His face went red. This is my house. It turned to him fully. No, Daniel. This farm has been in my name since your father died. I let you run it. I never gave you ownership. That was when his mask slipped. His eyes changed. Not fear this time. Hatred. You wouldn't dare. I took Claire's hand. Her fingers were cold and stiff. Watch me. He blocked the doorway. If she leaves, I'll call the sheriff and tell him she's unstable. I'll tell everyone you're confused. You're 60, Mom. You've been living alone out west. People will believe me before they believe some half-starved woman who talks to chickens. Claire made a sound like she had been punched. I looked at my son, and for the first time in my life, I did not see Michael. I saw a man using my child's face. Move, I said. He did not. So I screamed. Help! Somebody help us! Daniel froze. Across the pasture, old Mr. Halpern, the neighbor who leased our north field, looked up from his truck. Daniel stepped aside. I pulled Claire out of the coop. She tried to walk, but her knees buckled. I wrapped one arm around her waist and half carried her toward the garage. Daniel followed us, cursing under his breath. You're ruining my life. I helped Claire into the passenger seat of the old Chevy Henry used to love, the one Daniel apparently had not bothered to maintain. The engine coughed twice before it turned over. Daniel slammed both palms against the window. You have no idea what's done to me. I rolled the window down 2 inches. She was eating chicken feed, Daniel. She deserved worse. That sentence sealed something inside me. I looked at him through the glass. You just told me everything you needed to know. I drove into town with both hands tight on the wheel. Claire sat beside me, staring straight ahead, clutching her own wrists like she still expected permission to breathe. At the first diner I saw, I pulled in. She panicked. Please don't make me go inside like this. Then we'll eat in the car. I went in and ordered chicken soup, mashed potatoes, biscuits, sweet tea, and 2 slices of pie. When I brought the food back, Claire stared at it like she was afraid it would be taken away. Eat, I said softly. She picked up the spoon but could not stop shaking. How long has he been keeping food from you? She looked down. I didn't know anymore. Claire. He said if I didn't work right, I didn't eat. He said I had to learn gratitude. I covered my mouth. She ate slowly at first, then faster, then stopped suddenly as if remembering a rule. You don't have to ask, I said. Not anymore. Her face crumpled. After that, I drove her to the emergency room in Springfield. She begged me not to, said it would make him mad, said he knew people, said his friend Mark was a deputy. I told her Daniel could be mad from a jail cell. The doctor examined her while I sat in the hallway with me hands folded so tightly my knuckles hurt. A nurse brought me coffee. I did not drink it. When the doctor came out, his face was careful in the way doctors look when they are trying not to show horror. Mrs. Whitaker? Yes. Your daughter-in-law is severely dehydrated and malnourished. She has bruising in multiple stages of healing, 2 ribs that appear to have healed incorrectly, and signs consistent with prolonged confinement. The hallway tilted. This did not start recently, he added. I knew that. I knew it before he said it. I had heard the pauses on the phone. I had accepted Daniel's explanations. Claire was resting. Claire was overwhelmed. Claire did not feel like talking. Claire was embarrassed because they could not have children. I believed my son because believing him hurt less than suspecting him. That night, I called our family attorney, Robert Hayes. He had handled Henry's estate and knew every acre of Whitaker Farm. "Evelyn," he said, "if you report this, Daniel could face serious charges." I looked through the glass wall of the hospital room. Claire was asleep under a clean blanket, and in her arm, her face softened. She looked almost transparent. "Then report it seriously." Hugh was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure?" I thought about the little boy in my framed photo. The one who used to bring me dandelions and say they were gold. Then it hot about the man who said his wife deserved worse. "Yes," I said, "I'm sure." At 10:41 that night, I signed my statement at the police station. I described the coupe, the latch, the feet in Claire's hand. Daniel's words, the bruises, the threats. The officer asked if I understood that my statement could help put Myson in prison. I said yes. My hand shook when I signed the last page, not because I regretted it. Because somewhere across town, police were about to drive down the gravel road to the farm. And this time, I was not going to save my son. At 11:18 that night, my phone rang. "Daniel." I stared at his name until the screen blurred. Robert, my attorney, stood beside me in the police station lobby. "You don't have tonsure." But I did. "Mom," Daniel said. His voice was not arrogant now. It was frightened. "There are cops at the house." "I know. What did you do?" "What I should have done sooner." "You're my mother. And Claire is your wife. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding does not leave a woman with broken ribs." He breathed hard into the phone. "She's lying. I saw her. She's crazy. She's been crazy for years. You know that." "No, Daniel," I said. "I know what you told me." "That is not the same thing." For a second, neither of us spoke. Then said the words I think he believed would break me. "If Dad were alive, he'd be ashamed of you." I closed my eyes. "No. If your father were alive, he would be driving the police car." Then I hung up. I made it to the restroom before I broke. I locked myself in a stall and sobbed so hard I could not breathe. I cried for Claire. I cried for Henry. I cried for the boy I raised. I cried because 8 years earlier I had been tired, lonely, grieving, and eager to believe that distance could not become neglect. The next morning, Claire woke in the hospital with clean hair, a blue gown, and eyes that kept searching the corners of the room. "Is he here?" she whispered. "No." "Did he call?" "Yes." She swallowed. "Is he mad?" "He is arrested." Her face went blank. Then she started shaking. I thought she was afraid for him. But she whispered, "He's going to get out." I pulled my chair closer. "Not if we tell the truth." Claire looked at me for a long time. "The truth is ugly." "I know." "No," she said. "You don't." And then, piece by piece, she told me. Daniel had been charming at first. Everyone loved Daniel. He could sell hay to a horse and make the horse thank him. After Henry died and I left for Oregon, Daniel started saying the farm pressure was killing him. Claire tried to help. She did bookkeeping, cooked for the workers, cleaned the farmhouse, managed orders. Then came the rules. No phone at dinner. No visiting her sister without asking. No spending money without showing receipts. No talking to neighbors about private problems. When Claire's mother called too often, Daniel said she was interfering. When Claire cried, he said she was unstable. When she asked to visit her family in Tulsa, he said a good wife stayed where she was needed. "The first time he hit me," Claire said, looking at the blanket, "was because I answered a call from my mom while he was talking. I sat still because I did not want my rage to scare her. He cried after, she said. He said he was under stress. He said I made him feel small. I believed him. The chicken coop started as punishment for leaving Agate open. Then for burning dinner. Then for speaking back. Then for not being pregnant. Sometimes he locked her in for an hour. Sometimes overnight. Sometimes longer. He would bring water sometimes, she said. Sometimes he forgot. Or said forgot. Her voice went flat. There was a bowl for the chickens. I used that when I had to. I pressed my fist to my mouth. I'm sorry, I whispered. She shook her head. You didn't know. I should have. You asked about me. He always answered first. That sentence hurt because it was true. I had called. I had asked. But if Daniel said Claire was resting, I accepted it. If he said she was going through a depressive spell, I lowered my voice and changed the subject. If she came on the phone and sounded strange, I blamed distance, bad service, shyness, anything except the truth. Robert came that afternoon with legal documents and a face full of controlled anger. Claire, he said gently, the prosecutor will need your statement. The hospital report is strong. Evelyn's statement is strong. But your testimony matters. Claire gripped the blanket. Will I have to see him? Not right now. Eventually, possibly in court. We can request protections. She looked at me. What if I fall apart? Then you fall apart, I said. And we pick you back up. She almost smiled. The next day, she gave her statement. It took 3 hours. I waited outside the interview room with cold coffee and a Bible I had not opened in years. Every time I heard footsteps, I looked up. Every time a door opened, I stopped breathing. When Claire finally came out, her eyes were swollen, but her spine was straight. I said it, she told me. All of it? All I could. That is enough for today. She nodded, then whispered, he always said no one would believe me. I took her hand. I believe you. She looked at me like those 3 words were more food than the soup had been. Daniel's first hearing was 2 days later. I wore Henry's old wedding ring on a chain around my neck. Claire was too weak to attend, so I went with Robert. Daniel was brought in wearing county orange. His hair was messy. His face looked thinner already, but his eyes found mine immediately. He smiled at me, not lovingly. Strategically. The prosecutor listed the charges: domestic assault, unlawful restraint, abuse of a vulnerable adult by deprivation, witness intimidation, and other counts still under investigation. Daniel's attorney, a sharp man in a navy suit, argued that Claire was mentally unstable and that I had been manipulated after years away. My client's mother is elderly, he said. She has been grieving. She misunderstood a private marital issue. I stood up before Robert could stop me. The judge looked over her glasses. Ma'am, sit down unless you are called. I sat, shaking. Daniel kept looking at me like he still owned the room. Bail was denied. That should have comforted me. It did not. Because when walked out of the courthouse, Daniel's attorney approached Robert with a folder. We have documentation, he said, showing Mrs. Claire Whitaker previously admitted to emotional instability and withdrew prior allegations against her husband. Robert took the paper. I watched his face change. Claire's signature was at the bottom. When we returned to the hospital and showed it to her, she stared at it. Then she whispered, I never signed that. Robert's eyes went cold. Then your son may have just handed us another crime. That was the first twist. The second came the next morning. Robert called me before sunrise. Evelyn, I need you to meet me at the farm. I left Claire with a nurse and drove through fog so thick the road looked like a memory. Whitaker Farm sat silent in the gray dawn. Police tape still marked the coop. Robert stood by the front porch with a locksmith and 2 officers. What is this? I asked. Daniel's attorney claimed the farm office contains records supporting his defense, Robert said. Since the property is legally yours, and there is now a forgery issue, we obtained permission to secure documents before anything disappears. Inside the farmhouse, the air smelled stale, like closed curtains and old anger. I had not stepped into Henry's office since the day I left. Daniel had changed it. His framed hunting photos hung where Henry's seed maps used to be. A locked filing cabinet sat behind the desk. The locksmith opened it. Inside were bank statements, farm contracts, old medical bills, insurance papers, and envelopes with Claire's name written on them, dozens of envelopes. None mailed. My hands went numb. Robert opened one carefully. It was a letter from Claire to her mother. The date was 4 years earlier. Mom, if this ever reaches you, please come get me. I don't know if I am still alive or just obeying. I sat down hard in Henry's chair. There were more. Letters begging for help. Letters apologizing for missed birthdays. Letters explaining bruises. Letters saying Daniel had taken her phone. Letters saying she was scared to sleep. Daniel had kept them. Not thrown away. Kept them. Like trophies. One envelope contained a small silver cross necklace. Claire later told me her mother gave it to her at 16. Daniel had taken it during a fight and said she could have it back when she became a real wife. He never gave it back. The officers photographed everything. Robert looked sick. This changes the case. But it changed something in me too. Until then, a thin, foolish part of my heart had wondered if Daniel had lost control, snapped under stress, become someone else slowly without understanding. Those letters proved control. He knew she wanted help. He made sure help never came. When Claire saw the letters, she did not cry at first. She touched the envelopes one by one, as if greeting pieces of herself she thought had died. Then she picked up the silver cross and pressed it against her chest. He told me my family forgot me, she said. No, I said. He made sure they couldn't find you. She looked at me. I want to call my mother. So we did. I stood in the corner while Claire dialed with trembling fingers. A woman answered on the 4th ring. Hello? Claire opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Hello, the woman repeated. Claire finally whispered, Mom? The scream that came through that phone will follow me for the rest of my life. Her mother, Linda, sobbed so hard Claire had to sit down. Then her father came on the line, crying too, saying her name over and over like a prayer. They had not forgotten her. They had been told by Daniel that Claire wanted distance, that she was ashamed of them, that she was mentally unwell and needed space. Once, when they came to the farm, Daniel told them Claire had gone to a women's retreat in Kansas and would be upset if they interfered. Claire looked at me when she heard that. That was the week he locked me in the basement pantry. I had to leave the room. By then, the history had started to spread. Small towns do not keep secrets, especially not when police cars sit outside a farm everyone knows. At first, whispers ran through grocery aisles and church parking lots, then a local reporter called. Then a regional station. Then someone leaked that the woman found on Whitaker Farm had been living in conditions consistent with captivity. Daniel's friends tried to defend him online. No one knows what happens in a marriage, she always seemed off. His mom is probably after the farm money. Then the letters became evidence in court. And silence fell. The preliminary hearing was packed. People stood against the walls. Some came for gossip. Some came for justice. Some, I think, came because the horror was too close to home, and they needed to see whether a house with white siding and American flags could hide a prison. Claire insisted on testifying. Her mother and father sat behind her. I sat beside them. Daniel sat at the defense table in a suit. He looked clean, controlled, almost handsome. The way abusers often do in public. His attorney tried to paint Claire as confused. Mrs. Whitaker, you admit you suffered anxiety during your marriage? Yes, Claire said. Being locked in a chicken coop made me anxious. A few people gasped. The attorney tightened his mouth. You also admit there were fertility struggles? Yes. And those struggles affected your emotional state? Claire looked at Daniel, then back at the attorney. No. My husband using my infertility as an excuse to starve me affected my emotional state. The courtroom went still. Then Robert presented the letters. One by one. The forged document, the hidden envelopes. The necklace. The medical report. My statement.mr. Halpern's statement that he had heard screaming for years and had been told Claire had episodes. Then came the recording. I had forgotten about it. When I opened the coupe, my phone had been in my coat pocket. Somehow, when Daniel grabbed my arm near the garage, it triggered an emergency recording app my granddaughter had installed years earlier after I slipped in my apartment parking lot. The audio was poor. But Daniel's voice was clear enough. She deserved worse. The judge listened without moving. Daniel stared at the table. Claire closed her eyes. That was the moment the room changed. Not because people suddenly believed Claire. Many already did. It changed because Daniel's own voice walked into the room and stood against him. At the end of the hearing, the judge allowed the case to proceed on all major charges and added conditions preventing Daniel or anyone connected to him from contacting Claire. As deputies led him away, Daniel turned. For a second, I thought he would look at Claire. He looked at me. You picked her over me, he said. I stood. No, Daniel. I picked right over wrong. You're the one who made them enemies. He laughed, but his face broke while he did it. You'll regret this. I walked to him until the deputy put a hand out to stop him. I already regret 8 years, I said. I will not regret today. That night, Claire asked if she could go back to the farm. Not Tosti, she said quickly. Just to see it without him. I did not want to take her. The place was soaked in pain. But her therapist said control matters. Choice matters. So 4 days later, we drove through the gate together. She held the silver cross in her hand the entire time. The coupe still stood behind the barn, empty now, the door open. The chickens had been moved by animal control temporarily. Sunlight hit the cracked wood, making it look ordinary. That offended him. Something that ugly should have looked ugly. Claire stood several feet away. I thought I would die there, she said. I wanted to say something wise. Nothing came. She walked closer. Her legs shook, but she kept going. Then she picked up a rusted feed scoop from the ground and threw it as hard as she could against the coupe wall. The sound cracked across the yard. Then she screamed. Not words. Just ears. I stood there and let her. When she was done, she turned to me. I don't want him to own this place in my memory. He won't. How? I looked at the coupe. We burn it down. Robert said we had to wait until evidence processing was complete. So we waited. Waiting became its own punishment. Daniel's trial was set for early spring. In the months before, his attorney tried everything. He suggested Claire had exaggerated. He suggested I had been manipulated. He suggested Daniel had financial stress. He suggested marital privacy. He suggested rural discipline. He suggested things that made my blood feel poisoned. Then came the final twist. A woman named Marissa Cole contacted Robert. She had worked as a seasonal bookkeeper on the farm 6 years earlier. She had quit suddenly, according to Daniel, because she was lazy and unreliable. That was not why she left. Marissa met us at Robert's office with shaking hands and a folder of her own. I should have said something, she told Claire. I'm sorry. Claire looked tired, but kind. What did you see? Marissa opened the folder. Photos. Not of Claire. Of farm accounts. Daniel had been stealing from the farm for years. Taking loans against equipment he did not own. Falsifying payments, using Claire's signature on financial documents. He had even taken out a line of credit in my name using old estate paperwork and a forged authorization. My son had not only abused his wife. He had been trying to steal the farm. Marissa said she discovered irregularities and confronted him. Daniel threatened her, said he would ruin her reputation, said nobody would believe a 24-year-old temp over a Whitaker. So she left. But she kept copies. Robert leaned back in his chair, stunned. Why come forward now? Marissa looked at Claire. Because I saw the news. And because when I worked there, I once heard crying from the storage room. Daniel told me it was a TV. I believed him because it was easier. I don't want easy anymore. That sentence cut through me. I knew exactly what she meant. The financial crimes became a separate investigation. Suddenly Daniel's image as a stressed farmer cracked open. He was not a man overwhelmed by responsibility. He was a man who wanted control, money, obedience, and sympathy. The prosecutor offered a plea deal after the new evidence surfaced. Daniel refused at first. He believed a jury would see him as the real victim. A good local man betrayed by a fragile wife and a confused mother. Then the trial began. On the first day, the prosecutor placed 3 photographs before the jury. The chicken coop. Claire's hospital photo. The stack of Funsent letters. I watched 12 strangers understand in less than 10 minutes what I had failed to understand for years. Claire testified on the second day. She wore a navy dress and a silver cross. Her mother braided her hair that morning. I made her eggs and toast, and she ate every bite. Before she walked into the courtroom, she asked me, "What if my voice shakes?" I said, "Let it shake. Earthquakes still move mountains." She smiled. On the stand, she told the truth. Not perfectly. Not smoothly. Truth rarely comes out polished. She forgot dates. She cried. She asked for water. She closed her eyes when they played the recording. But she did not take back a single word. Daniel's attorney tried to break her. "You stayed, didn't you?" "Yes." "You had opportunities to leave?" "I had locked doors, no phone, no money, and a husband who convinced everyone I was unstable." "You never screamed for help?" "I did," she said. He chose places where no one listened. The prosecutor asked her one final question. "Mrs. Whitaker, why are you testifying today?" Claire looked at the jury. "Because he told me the world would never believe a woman like me over a man like him. I want to know if he was right." No one moved. I saw juror number 7 wipe her eye. I testified after lunch. I told them about the day I came home. The coop. The feed. Daniel swords. My own failure. The defense asked, "Mrs. Whitaker, isn't it true you feel guilty for abandoning your family farm and are no overcorrecting by blaming your son?" "Yes," I said. The attorney paused, surprised. "Yes, I feel guilty," I continued. "I will feel guilty until the day I die." But guilt did not put bruises on Claire. Daniel did. The prosecutor played the recording again. She deserved worse. My son's voice filled the courtroom. I stared straight ahead. Daniel did not look at me. On the 4th day, Robert and the prosecutor introduced the financial documents. The forged signatures, the loans. The missing money. The secret account. The line of credit in my name. That was when Daniel changed. Until then, he had looked angry. Now he looked cornered. Because abuse can be denied. Bruises can be explained away by cruel people. Fear can be twisted into instability. But numbers do not flinch. The bank records did not cry on the stand. They simply told the truth. Daniel had planned to force me into selling the farm. He had already contacted a developer. The contract draft was found in his email. The buyer wanted the land for a luxury hunting retreat. Daniel would receive a large payment up front if he could provide clean authority to sell. Claire had discovered one of the documents 2 years earlier. That was the week he locked her in the coop for 3 days. The prosecutor laid it out clearly. Daniel did not just imprison Claire because he was cruel. He imprisoned her because she knew too much. That was the twist that made the entire courtroom turn against him. On the final day, Daniel chose to speak. His attorney looked like he wanted to stop him, but Daniel insisted. He stood in a gray suit and told the judge he had been under pressure. He said farming was hard. He said infertility broke his marriage. He said his mother abandoned him. He said Claire was emotionally exhausting. He said he had made mistakes. Mistakes. As if forgetting to mail a bill and locking your wife in a chicken coop belonged in the same word. Then he turned toward me. Mom, I'm still your son. I stood before the judge could tell me not to. Aunt Claire was still a human being. Daniel's face twisted. You always loved the farm more than me. No, I said. I loved you enough to give you trust you never deserved. And you used it to build a cage. The judge ordered me to sit. I did, but I had said what I needed to say. The jury took 3 hours. Guilty. On domestic assault. Guilty. On unlawful restraint. Guilty. On forgery. Guilty. On financial fraud. Guilty. On witness intimidation. Claire gripped my hand so hard it hurt. Daniel did not move. At sentencing, the judge said something I will never forget. Mr. Whitaker, you hid violence behind marriage, theft behind family, and imprisonment behind rural privacy. This court will not participate in that hiding. He received 22 years, with eligibility rules that mean they would not be walking back onto Whitaker Farm anytime soon. I did not cheer. A mother does not cheer when her son is led away in chains, but I breathed. For the first time in years, I breathed without feeling someone else suffocating beside me. 2 weeks later, after evidence release, we burned the chicken coop. Claire's parents came from Tulsa. Mr. Halpern came. Marissa came. Robert came in old jeans and work gloves. Even the nurse from the hospital came on her day off. We moved the chickens to a new clean enclosure near the orchard, with fresh straw and proper fencing. Then Mr. Halpern poured the approved fuel under the old coop while the fire marshal stood by. Claire held the match. Her hand shook. You don't have to, I said. Yes, she said. I do. She struck it once. It failed. She struck it again. Flame. She threw it. The dry wood caught slowly at first, then all at once. Fire crawled up the sides, through the wire, across the roof. Smoke rose into the Missouri sky. Claire watched without crying. When the roof collapsed, she whispered, there. Just that. There. Like she had placed something heavy down. Spring came late that year. The ground thawed. The field softened and Claire stayed in the yellow guest room at first because the main bedroom made her sick. We painted it pale green. Her mother bought curtains with tiny white flowers. I put a lock on the inside of her door and gave her every key to every building on the farm. No more locked doors from the outside, I told her. She ran her fingers over the keys. No more asking permission, she said. Healing did not look like the movies. It was not one brave speech and a sunrise. It was nightmares at 2 a.m. It was panic when a truck door slammed. It was Claire hiding crackers in drawers for months because hunger had taught her not to trust full cupboards. It was her crying in the grocery store because there were too many choices and nobody was telling her which cereal she was allowed to buy. It was me sitting with my own shame in therapy every Tuesday. I raised him, I told Dr. Patel. You raised a child, she said. He became a man responsible for his choices. What if I missed something? You did. I flinched. She leaned forward. And when you finally saw it, you acted. Both can be true. That became the sentence I carried. Both can be true. I had failed Claire before I saved her. I loved my son, and I testified against him. The farm had been a place of horror, and it could become a place of life again. Claire decided she wanted to finish nursing school. She had started before marrying Daniel, then dropped out because he said wives did not need degrees if their husbands provided. The first time she filled out the re-enrollment form, she stared at the blank emergency contact line. Put me, I said. She smiled. Then she added her mother too. Two, she said. I have 2 people now. You have more than 2. She looked out the kitchen window toward the place where the coop had been. I'm trying to believe that. We planted a rose garden there. Claire chose thorny red roses first. For obvious reasons, she said, then white ones. For peace. Then yellow. For the woman I used Tobe. I asked, who is she? Claire thought for a moment. Hopeful, she said. A little naive. But she didn't deserve what happened to her. No, I said. She didn't. That summer, Daniel wrote his first letter from prison. It arrived in a plain envelope addressed to me. Mom, I know you are angry. I hope one day you understand what Claire put me through. I am getting counseling. I pray you remember I am your blood. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. Claire asked if she could see it. Are you sure? Yes. She read it under the oak tree in the yard. Her face did not change. Then she handed it back. He still thinks the story is about him. I nodded. Do you want to respond? No, she said. His remorse does not get to knock on my door whenever it wants. So what did not respond? Months became a year. Claire gained weight. Her hair grew back thick and dark. She laughed sometimes with her whole face, then looked startled by the sound. She learned to drive again. She bought a Retest Honda with her own money from a part-time job at the clinic. The first time she drove herself into town, I stood on the porch like amateur watching a teenager leave. She rolled down the window. I'm 34, she called. I know, I said. Drive carefully. She laughed. A real laugh. It nearly brought me to my knees. On the 1-year anniversary of the day I found her, Claire asked me to walk with her to the garden. The roses had grown wild and beautiful. The ground that once held the coop was now full of color. She carried a small bowl. What's that? Chicken feed. I went still. She knelt by the roses and poured it into the soil. I thought I would hate it forever, she said. But I don't want him to own corn, or chickens, or this dirt, or my hunger. So I'm giving it to something that grows. I cried then. Not loud. Just enough. Claire took my hand. You came back, she said. Too late. No, she said. Late is not the same as never. That is the kind of grace victims sometimes offer others before they can offer it to themselves. 2 years after the trial, Claire graduated from nursing school. We drove 4 hours to the ceremony. Her parents came. Robert came. Marissa came. Mr. Halpern sent flowers because his hip was bad. When Claire walked across that stage, wearing her cap and gown, the whole row of us stood up like fools and cheered until people turned around. She accepted her diploma with the silver cross shining at her throat. That night, we held a party at the farm. Nothing fancy: a barbecue, potato salad, lemonade, folding chairs under string lights. Claire wore a blue dress and white sneakers. Her mother cried into a napkin every 20 minutes. Ikea toast. To Claire, I said, lifting my glass. For surviving what should have ended her, for telling the truth when truth cost her everything, and for turning a place of fear into a place where people can breathe. Claire wiped her eyes. Then she stood. And to Evelyn, she said. I shook my head, but she kept going. For choosing justice when blood gave her every excuse not to. Noon spoke for a moment. Then Mr. Halpern muttered, Amen, and everyone laughed through tears. The farm is ours now. Legally, it changed the trust. Half will go to Claire. The other half will eventually become a shelter fund for women escaping domestic violence in rural counties, where everybody knows everybody, and that is exactly why nobody talks. Claire works at the hospital now. She is good with frightened patients. She notices the ones who say, I'm fine, too quickly. She keeps brochures in her locker. Sometimes, with permission, she tells them a little of her story. Not all of it. Just enough to make a door appear where they thought there was only a wall. She met a doctor named Matthew during a night shift. He is patient, careful, and gentle in a way that does not advertise itself. The first time he came to dinner, he asked Claire where she wanted to sit. Such a small thing. Such a huge thing. After he left, Claire stood at the sink washing plates. He scares me, she said. Did he do something? No. That's the problem. He didn't. Helisand. He asked. He didn't push. I don't know what to do with that. I dried a plate. You don't have Ito do anything tonight. She nodded. Months later, they started dating. Slowly. With boundaries. With therapy. With Claire saying no sometimes just to feel the word come out of her mouth and be respected. The first time Matthew visited the rose garden, Claire told him what had been there before. He did not say, "I'm sorry," too quickly. He stood quietly. Then he said, "Thank you for telling me." Claire later told me that was the moment she trusted him a little more. As for Daniel, I know very little. He is still in prison. He works in the library. He writes letters sometimes. Some sound angry. Some sound sorry. Some sound like a man learning new words but not yet their meaning. Maybe one day he will truly understand. Maybe he will not. His redemption, if it ever comes, belongs to him, but it will not be purchased with Claire's peace. I still love my son, that is the truth people do not like in stories like this. They want clean endings. Monsters on one side, heroes on the other. But I remember Daniel at 5, asleep with a toy tractor in his hand. I remember him crying when Henry taught him to drive the old pickup. I remember the boy before the man. And I know this too, love is not a hiding place for evil. Being a mother does not mean standing between your child and consequences forever. Sometimes it means stepping aside so justice can reach him before he destroys another life. Every evening now, I walk the farm at sunset. The house is painted again. The porch has been repaired. The wind chime by the kitchen window sings when the breeze comes over the fields. Sometimes I hear Claire in the kitchen, humming while she makes coffee before a night shift. Sometimes I see her in the garden, cutting roses for patients at the hospital. Sometimes she stands by the fence and watches the chickens scratch in their clean yard, and I wonder what memories pass through her. One night, I found her there under a pink sky. "Does it still hurt?" I asked. She looked at the chickens, then at the roses. "Yes," she said, "but it doesn't own me." That is the ending Daniel never imagined, not his prison sentence. Not the lost farm. Not the headlines. The real ending is Claire laughing in a house where she was once silenced, Claire holding keys to every door. Claire feeding chickens by choice. Claire studying, healing, loving, leaving when she wants and returning because she wants to. The woman I found eating chicken feed now saves lives. And I, the mother who came home late, learn that late can still matter. Because justice is not only watching the guilty fall. Sometimes justice is watching the woman they tried to bury stand in the sun, wipe the dirt from her hands, and plant roses exactly where the cage used to be.